Security. Remove this woman immediately. We cannot have family members wandering in restricted areas. Nurse Jennifer Walsh's voice cut through the ER like a scalpel. Dr. Maya Richardson stood perfectly still in her simple navy scrubs, holding a patient chart. She didn't argue, didn't raise her voice, just waited. Because in 12 minutes, this entire hospital would discover who she really was, and nothing would ever be the same again. Have you ever been so completely underestimated that people couldn't see the authority standing right in front of them? What happened next will leave you speechless. The dismissal. St. Michael's Medical Center emergency room. 2:47 a.m. Chaos reigned. Trauma bays overflowed. Monitors beeped urgent warnings. Residents ran between patients, their white coats billowing like sails in a storm. And Dr. Maya Richardson had just walked into the center of it all, invisible. She'd taken the red eye from San Francisco, where she'd delivered the keynote address at the National Cardiology Conference. Her presentation on minimally invasive valve replacement had received a standing ovation from 3,000 physicians. But here, in her own hospital's ER, wearing scrubs instead of her white coat with Chief of Cardiology embroidered in gold, she was just another black woman who didn't belong. "Excuse me, ma'am." Nurse Jennifer Walsh blocked her path. Mid-30s, blonde ponytail, 12 years in the ER. She'd seen her share of confused family members wandering into restricted areas. "Family waiting room is down the hall. You can't be back here." Maya's eyes flicked to the patient board. Bed 7. Marcus Williams, age 19. Acute myocardial infarction. Her trained mind processed the vitals in milliseconds. ST elevation. Troponin levels critical. This kid needed a cath lab. Now. "I'm checking on the MI in bed 7, Maya said quietly, her voice carrying the calm authority of someone who delivered this information thousands of times. Jennifer's expression shifted from polite to suspicious. "Ma'am, patient information is confidential. Are you family? Because even if you are family, you still can't be in this area." Hospital policy. Jennifer's hand moved to her hip, where her radio sat clipped to her scrubs. "How did you even get past the security desk?" Maya could have explained. Could have pulled out her ID badge with the chief's credentials. Could have stated her title, and watched Jennifer's face drain of color. But something stopped her. The way Jennifer's eyes traveled from Maya's natural hair, to her simple scrubs, to her lack of visible authority markers. The assumption written across her face. But Maya didn't pull out her credentials. Because in that moment, she realized this wasn't just about one confused nurse. This was about something much bigger. Something she'd seen play out hundreds of times, but never experienced firsthand. And what happened in the next 10 minutes would expose a truth that St. Michael's had been hiding for years. "I need to see the patient's chart," Maya said calmly, gesturing toward the file in her hand. Jennifer's voice rose. "Ma'am, I'm going to have to ask you to leave immediately, or I'll call security." A resident rushed past, white coat flying. Jennifer grabbed his arm. "Dr. Patterson, we have a situation. This woman is refusing to leave the ER." Dr. Chad Patterson, first-year resident, barely glanced at Maya before making his assessment. Young black woman in scrubs with no visible badge. Probably a family member getting emotional. He'd seen it 100 times in his 6 months on the job. "Ma'am, I understand you're worried about your family member, but you need to go to the waiting room." His tone carried the practiced condescension of someone who'd been taught bedside manner from a textbook. "The medical team will update you when appropriate." Maya's phone buzzed in her pocket. She glanced at the screen. Dr. Samuel Chen, Chief of Emergency Medicine. "Urgent." She declined the call. "The patient in bed 7, Maya said, her voice still calm but now carrying an edge, "is presenting with anterior STEMI. His troponin levels suggest significant cardiac damage. He needs cardiac catheterization immediately. And based on these vitals," Jennifer cut her off. "How do you know his troponin levels? Have you been accessing patient files?" She turned to Dr. Patterson. "She's been looking at confidential charts." The situation was escalating. Other staff members were starting to notice. A security guard, Tom Martinez, appeared at the nurse's station, hand resting casually on his radio. Jennifer had just accused a chief of cardiology of violating HIPAA regulations. In 8 minutes, she would understand the magnitude of that mistake. But first, things were about to get much, much worse. Ma'am. Security Officer Martinez approached with the rehearsed confidence of someone who'd escorted hundreds of difficult family members out of restricted areas. I'm going to need you to come with me. Maya didn't resist, didn't argue, just followed Martinez toward the exit, her mind already calculating the fallout, not for herself, for the patient in bed 7 who was losing precious minutes while staff focused on removing her instead of treating him. They reached the security desk. Martinez gestured toward the visitors area. You can wait here for updates. Someone will come find you when. Maya's phone exploded with calls. Dr. Chen, hospital administrator, Patricia Wong, chief of surgery, Dr. James Marshall, all three calling simultaneously. She declined all of them. Ma'am, I'm going to need you to turn off your phone. Martinez's patience was wearing thin. Hospital policy, Officer Martinez. Maya finally spoke, her voice still that same controlled calm. In approximately 6 minutes, you're going to receive a call from the CEO's office. I'd advise you to answer it immediately. Martinez frowned. Ma'am, that's not how this— An alarm pierced the ER. Code blue, bed 7. Maya's head snapped up. The young MI patient. Her trained instincts screamed at her to run back, to take control, to do what she'd done thousands of times before. But she remained standing at the security desk, watching through the glass doors as staff scrambled. Through the chaos, she saw Dr. Patterson leading the code. Young, inexperienced, making mistakes. He ordered epinephrine when the rhythm showed VFib requiring immediate defibrillation, wasted 30 seconds on chest compressions when the patient needed electrical cardioversion. Maya watched a 19-year-old patient die because staff were too busy removing her to listen to her assessment. But what they didn't know was that this code blue was being broadcast live to the hospital's quality control room, where Chief of Medicine Dr. Samuel Chen was watching, and he'd just recognized the woman standing at the security desk, the woman they'd just forcibly removed from treating her own patient. Maya's phone rang again. This time, she answered, Dr. Richardson. Chen's voice was tight with controlled panic. Please tell me you're not the person who was just escorted out of the ER.
I'm at the security desk.
Jesus Christ. A pause. The patient in bed 7 is coding because no one initiated proper STEMI protocol. Dr. Patterson ordered EPA for V5 instead of immediate defibrillation. I'm sending the cardiac team down now, Samuelin. Maya's voice was still calm, but something had shifted, something dangerous. Don't send anyone. I'm going back in, and we're going to have a very public conversation about systematic bias in medical care. She ended the call and turned to Martinez. Officer, I need you to escort me back into the ER immediately. Martinez shook his head. Ma'am, I just removed you from— My name is Dr. Maya Richardson. She finally pulled out her ID badge. I'm the chief of cardiology and a member of the hospital's board of directors. The patient coding in bed 7 is my patient, and if he dies while we're standing here, you and I are going to have a very different conversation with hospital legal. The color drained from Martinez's face as he read the credentials. Chief of cardiology, board member. The woman he'd just escorted out was one of the most powerful physicians in the entire hospital system. But Maya's revelation wasn't just about saving her career or proving a point. What came next would transform St. Michael's Medical Center's approach to implicit bias forever. Because this wasn't the first time she'd been mistaken for just another black woman who didn't belong. It was just the first time she had the power and the evidence to do something about it. The confrontation. Maya walked back through those ER doors with Martinez trailing behind her, his radio already crackling with panicked messages from administration. The code blue alarm still screamed. Staff still scrambled around bed 7, and Dr. Patterson still made mistakes that were killing his patient. Clear, Patterson called out, preparing to shock. Stop. Maya's voice cut through the chaos like thunder. Every head in the ER turned. Dr. Patterson, step away from the patient immediately. Patterson looked up, confused and irritated.
Ma'am, I already told you.
Dr. Richardson, she corrected him, her voice carrying to every corner of the ER. Chief of Cardiology, and you're about to kill this patient with improper ACLS protocol. The ER froze. Nurse Jennifer's face went white. Dr. Patterson's hands stopped mid-motion, and through the glass windows of the trauma bay, Maya could see hospital administration sprinting down the hallway. She moved to the bedside, with the fluid motion of someone who'd done this 10,000 times. Rhythm? A medical student stammered. Ventricular fibrillation, ma'am. I mean, doctor. Defibrillation at 200 joules. Now. Maya took control with absolute authority. Someone get me his cath lab films. I want to see his lad. The crash cart charged. Maya positioned the paddles. Clear. Thump. The patient's body jerked. Still in V5. The monitor tech called out. 360 joules. Clear. Thump. Normal sinus rhythm. The monitor tech's voice cracked with relief. We have a pulse. Maya immediately began palpating the patient's chest. Checking for proper cardiac output. Get me a stat EKG and call the cath lab. Tell them we have an anterior STEMI coming up in 5 minutes. Her hands moved with practiced precision. Starting IV lines. Ordering medications. Stabilizing the patient she diagnosed 12 minutes ago. From across the ER, while staff were busy removing her, the patient was stable. But the real reckoning was just beginning. Because standing in the doorway of the trauma bay was hospital CEO Patricia Wong, Chief of Medicine Samuel Chen, and the hospital's legal counsel. They'd watched the entire thing unfold on security cameras, and they'd just witnessed their own staff nearly kill a patient because they assumed a black woman in scrubs couldn't possibly be a doctor. CEO Wong stepped forward. Her face was professionally neutral, but her eyes betrayed genuine distress. Dr. Richardson, my office, now. Maya finished writing orders on the patient's chart. I'll be there in 10 minutes. After I ensure my patient is safely in the cath lab. Maya Wong began. 10 minutes, Patricia. Maya's tone was respectful, but absolute. My patient comes first, as it should have from the beginning. She turned to face the assembled ER staff. Every nurse, every resident, every attending who'd witnessed the confrontation. Some looked ashamed. Others looked defensive. All looked uncomfortable. Let me be very clear. Maya's voice carried to every corner of the department. What happened tonight was not an isolated incident. It was systematic failure resulting from implicit bias and assumptions based on appearance rather than qualifications. Jennifer tried to interrupt.
Dr. Richardson, I didn't know.
You didn't know because you didn't ask. Maya's words were surgical in their precision. You saw a black woman in scrubs and made assumptions. Nurse Walsh, how many white individuals have you escorted from this ER this month? Jennifer couldn't answer. Dr. Patterson, when was the last time you questioned a white physician's authority to access patient information? Patterson stared at his shoes. Officer Martinez, in your 8 years of security work at this hospital, how many white doctors have you physically removed from patient care areas? Martinez's silence was answer enough. Maya pulled out her phone and opened her voice recorder. For the past 6 months, I've been documenting every instance of implicit bias I've experienced and witnessed at St. Michael's. Tonight makes 47 documented incidents. Nurse Walsh, your interaction with me was number 47. It will also be the last, because Maya hadn't come back from that conference empty-handed. She brought a comprehensive plan to transform St. Michael's into the nation's leading hospital for addressing implicit bias in medical care. A plan she was about to unveil to the CEO, the board, and every staff member who just witnessed their own biases nearly kill a patient. And the changes she demanded wouldn't just affect St. Michael's. They would ripple across the entire healthcare system. The transformation. CEO Wong's office. 4:23 a.m. The sun was starting to rise over the city, casting long shadows across the mahogany conference table, where the hospital's entire executive team had assembled. Chief of Medicine Samuel Chen, Chief of Surgery James Marshall, Head of Nursing Laura Stevens, Legal Counsel David Kim, and at the head of the table, Dr. Maya Richardson. Still wearing her scrubs, still carrying the patient chart she'd fought to access. "Before we begin," Maya said, opening her laptop, "you should know that the patient in bed 7, Marcus Williams, is stable and undergoing successful cardiac catheterization. He'll make a full recovery. No thanks to the ER staff who spent 12 minutes trying to remove me instead of treating him." Wong leaned forward. "Maya, I can't apologize enough for what happened tonight, but you have to understand, from the staff's perspective, I was a black woman who didn't look like their mental image of authority, so they assumed I didn't belong." Maya's voice remained calm, but her words cut deep. "Patricia, this isn't about one nurse's mistake or one resident's assumption. This is about systematic failure in how we train, evaluate, and hold accountable our staff around issues of implicit bias." She turned her laptop screen to face the room. "For the past 6 months, I've been conducting an unauthorized but necessary investigation. I've documented 47 instances of implicit bias at St. Michael's. Tonight was merely the most dramatic example." The screen showed a detailed spreadsheet. Dates, times, descriptions of incidents, staff members involved, patient outcomes affected. Chen's face paled as he read. "Maya, some of these incidents resulted in delayed care, misdiagnoses, and in 2 cases, patient harm that required additional medical intervention." Maya advanced to the next slide. "But here's what's most disturbing. When I cross-referenced these incidents with our quality control data, I found a pattern." The next slide showed statistical analysis that made the legal counsel sit up straight. Black physicians at St. Michael's are questioned about their credentials 3.7 times more frequently than white physicians with identical qualifications. Black nurses report being mistaken for housekeeping staff 5.2 times more frequently than white nurses. And black patients receive pain medication an average of 47 minutes later than white patients with identical pain scores. The silence in the room was profound. "These aren't anecdotes," Maya continued. "This is systematic discrimination affecting patient care outcomes. And tonight, it nearly killed a 19-year-old patient while the entire ER watched." But Maya didn't bring this data to destroy careers or shame her colleagues. She brought it to revolutionize how hospitals address implicit bias. Because in her laptop was something revolutionary, something that would make St. Michael's the national leader in bias reduction, something that every hospital in America would eventually adopt. And she was about to unveil it. Maya opened a new folder on her laptop. "I'm calling it the Richardson Protocol. It's a comprehensive framework for identifying, addressing, and eliminating implicit bias in healthcare settings." She advanced through slides, showing the framework's components: real-time bias monitoring systems that flag potential discrimination in patient care decisions, mandatory scenario-based training where staff experience being on the receiving end of bias, anonymous reporting systems for staff and patients to document concerning behaviors, regular audits of patient care metrics broken down by race, gender, and other demographic factors, immediate intervention protocols when bias is identified, focusing on education rather than punishment, public accountability measures requiring hospitals to publish their bias metrics annually. Chief of Surgery Marshall spoke up. "Maya, this is comprehensive, but implementing something this extensive across an entire hospital system will cost approximately $2.3 million in year 1, Maya finished. "I've already secured funding from 3 major healthcare foundations who are enthusiastic about making St. Michael's the pilot site. They're willing to provide $5 million over 3 years if we commit to full implementation." Wong's eyes widened. "You've been planning this for months, 6 months. Since the day a patient's family member questioned whether I was qualified to touch their daughter during a code, because I was the only black physician in the room." Maya's voice remained steady. "I realized then that my personal experience wasn't isolated. It was systematic. And if I, as chief of cardiology, experienced this level of assumption and bias, what were less powerful black staff members experiencing? What were black patients experiencing?" She pulled up another slide. "Which brings me to my conditions for remaining at St. Michael's." The room tensed. Condition 1. Full implementation of the Richardson Protocol across all departments within 90 days. Condition 2. Creation of a Chief Diversity Officer position, reporting directly to the CEO with authority to implement changes. Condition 3. Mandatory retraining for all staff involved in tonight's incident, focusing not on punishment, but on understanding and growth. Condition 4. Public acknowledgement of what happened tonight and our commitment to systematic change. Wong exchanged glances with legal. Maya, asking us to publicly acknowledge, is the only way to ensure this never happens again. Maya's voice was firm. Patricia, 16 hospitals across the country are recruiting me. I've received offers from Johns Hopkins, Mayo Clinic, and Cleveland Clinic. All three have offered me positions as their chief of cardiology, with significantly higher salaries and zero tolerance for the bias I experienced tonight. She leaned forward. But I don't want to leave St. Michael's. This is my hospital, my home, the place where I've trained residents and saved lives and built a career. So I'm giving you and this board a choice. Implement real, measurable, systematic change, or I walk. And I take my Richardson protocol to a hospital that's willing to be a national leader in bias elimination. The decision should have taken hours, days even. But what happened next shocked everyone in that conference room, because CEO Wong did something unprecedented in healthcare administration, something that would make St. Michael's a case study in rapid institutional transformation. And it all started with two simple words. Let's begin. Wong stood up and walked to the whiteboard. Maya, you're absolutely right. This is systematic failure, and it ends today. I'm authorizing immediate implementation of the Richardson Protocol. David, draft the press release. We're holding a press conference at noon today. Legal counsel Kim nearly choked. Patricia, perhaps we should consult with corporate first. No. Wong's voice was absolute. Maya's right. This is about patient care, staff safety, and institutional integrity. We act now, we act decisively, and we act publicly. She turned to Maya. But I have one condition. You stay. You lead this transformation. Not as chief of cardiology, but as our first chief medical officer for equity and inclusion. You'll report directly to me. You'll have authority across all departments, and you'll have whatever resources you need to make St. Michael's the national model for bias elimination in healthcare. Maya hadn't expected this. She'd prepared for resistance, pushback, bureaucratic delays. She hadn't prepared for immediate, total capitulation. Patricia, Maya, what happened tonight was unconscionable. But your response shows exactly why you're the right person to lead this change. You didn't seek revenge. You didn't shame individuals. You built a systematic solution to a systematic problem. That's leadership. Chen nodded slowly. I agree. Maya, I've watched you transform our cardiology department. You can transform this entire hospital. Maya looked around the table, at faces that had moved from defensive to determined. This was what real change looked like. Not incremental, not cautious, but bold, immediate, and total. All right, she said finally, but we do this right? Full transparency, full accountability, and full commitment to measuring outcomes, not just implementing policies. Wong extended her hand. You have my word, and the full support of this executive team. The ripple. 6 months later, St. Michael's Medical Center had become a different place, and Dr. Maya Richardson stood at the podium of the American Medical Association's annual conference, preparing to share the results. Ladies and gentlemen, she began, her voice carrying to an audience of 5,000 healthcare professionals. I'm here to tell you about the night I was forcibly removed from my own emergency room while trying to save a patient's life, and how that night sparked a revolution in healthcare bias prevention. The slides behind her showed the data. Dramatic decreases in bias-related incidents, improved patient satisfaction scores across all demographics, reduced time to treatment disparities, and most importantly, better patient outcomes. The Richardson Protocol has been implemented at 47 hospitals across 12 states. The results are consistent and measurable. When hospitals commit to real-time bias monitoring, mandatory experiential training, and public accountability, patient care improves, staff satisfaction improves, and the systematic discrimination that has plagued healthcare for generations begins to crumble. She advanced to a new slide showing before and after statistics from St. Michael's. Bias-related incidents, down 73%. Pain medication delays for minority patients, eliminated. Staff reports of discriminatory treatment, down 89%. Patient complaints related to discrimination, down 94%. The audience erupted in applause. But the most important outcome, Maya continued, is this. She showed a photo of Marcus Williams, the 19-year-old patient from that night. Marcus graduated from nursing school last month. He's now working in St. Michael's Cardiac ICU. The patient who nearly died because of implicit bias is now fighting to eliminate it from within the system. She paused, letting the power of that transformation settle over the audience. The night I was removed from that ER, I had a choice. I could have filed complaints, sued the hospital, destroyed the careers of everyone involved, and walked away. Instead, I chose to build something, to create systematic change that would protect the next Black physician, the next Black nurse, the next Black patient, from experiencing what I experienced. Maya's voice strengthened. Because that's what real justice looks like. Not revenge, not punishment, but transformation. She clicked to her final slide. It showed a simple question. What will you build? Every hospital represented here today has bias. Some acknowledge it, most don't, but all of you have the power to implement change. The Richardson Protocol is open source, free to download, free to adapt. All I ask is that you commit to measuring outcomes and sharing your data. The applause was deafening. After her presentation, Maya stood in the corridor as hospital administrators lined up to speak with her. Each one wanted to implement the protocol. Each one recognized that the future of healthcare required confronting uncomfortable truths about the present. Her phone buzzed. A text from Nurse Jennifer Walsh. Dr. Richardson, I'm leading my first implicit bias training session today. 47 nurses signed up. Thank you for giving me a chance to learn and grow instead of just ending my career. I'll never forget what you taught me. Maya smiled and typed back. Keep learning. Keep growing. That's how we change the world. She looked around at the conference center, filled with thousands of healthcare professionals, all now armed with tools to fight bias in their own institutions. What had started as one humiliating night in an ER had become a national movement. Sometimes justice arrives wearing scrubs. Sometimes it arrives with data and protocols instead of anger and revenge. And sometimes the most powerful thing a leader can do is transform pain into purpose. Dr. Maya Richardson had done exactly that.